Om Shanti. Am I audible properly?
Om Shanti Bhai, we can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Okay, we'll start then. Okay, we'll start with the foreword or the author's introduction a little bit. So if any others join, they will join in the meantime. So welcome to the first reading session of Adidev. It's really great we are doing this together, and we'll invoke Baba and start with it. So I'll start with the author's introduction by Jagdish Bhai. Within the covers of this book is woven a unique life story. It is a story full of heart, a simple revelation of unparalleled importance. Read it carefully. The story you are about to begin is really a double biography because within the body of the man who earned the name of Prajapita Brahma, the father of humanity, was not one soul, but two. This is the actual true story of the incarnation and descent of God, the spiritual father, into the corporeal world. In the beginning, this is the story of an ordinary man and yet an unusual man, a successful, self-made businessman, a family man, a pillar of his community. His many friends all called him Dada or elder brother as a sign of endearment. Even his business acquaintances grew quickly to respect him and to call him by this name. But after the descent of God into his body, he was given a different name, one befitting his new role, Prajapita Brahma or Adidev, the first deity. He is remembered by the name of Brahma Baba or simply Baba or Father. God has revealed to us the past and future lives of this soul, and it is thus clear how wonderful an individual he really is. This is the story of Brahma Baba's last life full of integrity and humility, even to the most casual observer. Truly, he was a fitting instrument to serve as the corporeal medium of the highest soul of all. Above all, Brahma Baba's uniqueness was not merely in possessing the highest virtues, but also in his ability to bring out those same virtues in the souls with whom he came in contact. Even just reading his biography, our own lives may be changed. For Brahma Baba presents us with the inspiring spectacle of a man who proved it is possible to become perfect, to become master over the mind and emotions, to take charge of one's own destiny. It is a priceless story indeed. That was the introduction by Brother Jagdish. I feel we can go ahead and start with the main story, as others can listen through recordings also. So the part one starts the Chariot of God. The first chapter, the Sindh Community. On the left is Dada Lekhraj's picture. The Sindh Community. Our story begins in the mid-1930s in Sindh, a region of northwestern India. At that time, religious practice among the Hindus had degenerated from its once high level. The sustained impact of Western attitudes had changed the quality of life. The whole fabric of Sindhi culture had become less refined. Their food and drink, for instance, was once of the sattvic or purest type. Fresh vegetarian meals were prepared in the spirit of devotion and eaten in remembrance of the deities in large, yet close knit family gatherings. But this refined tradition had gradually eroded as people began to eat meat and acquire habits of quick, inattentive, and uncontrolled eating. People continued to perform their traditional worship, but the ceremonies became empty of their once exalted meaning. Became empty of their once exalted meaning. Men's minds were filled with the greed for money, the hunger for status. Trickery became the order of the day in business dealings. Angry reactions and exchanges were commonplace. Speech shifted from subjects of goodness and spirituality to talk about worldly desires. New customs of buying useless and expensive items purely for show developed, and of holding costly but meaningless celebrations. These customs began to erode a society acknowledged to be previously full of ancient cultural wisdom. Such degradation was a sign not recognized at the time, as other young cultures were also evolving in similar ways. But it was a sign that the world was entering its final upheaval of unrest before the process of renewal could begin. Who was there to guide the people back to the path of wholesomeness? Certainly not the politicians, nor the British rulers, who exploited rather than uplifted the people, nor the native royalty, nor the sincere but limited social and political reformers who strove for the freedom of India from the British, but had little to offer by way of achieving freedom from corruption and vice. What about the religious leaders? Priests, pundits, and preachers gave no knowledge that could bring peace of mind, good character, or pure life to families who looked to them for guidance. Rather, they had become mere readers of scriptures, performing empty ceremonies and taking money from people. Many even passed themselves off as God or convinced their gullible followers that God was everywhere. Such doctrines destroyed the intellects of the people, banishing all higher purpose in life. If we are already part of God, what is there to strive for? Such thinking was a natural result of the corruption of spirituality. And so the life of the people was derailed. Outwardly, the community prospered. The men of Sindh worked hard and grew rich, but peacelessness and order were missing from their lives. False progress eroded the traditional values of their fathers. Passion and suffering emerged where there once had been calm. Outward show had a outward show and a superficial and indulgent social environment measured the quality of life. The position of men was particularly degraded, especially after marriage. Mothers were treated as mere domestic servants and as playthings whose purpose was to satisfy the sexual desires of their husbands. Even if the man were clearly of an inferior sort, a drunkard, an eater of meat and fish, still, according to custom, it was the wife's duty to consider that the husband was God. He was her guru. Divorce was out of the question. Women were excluded from getting an education. A wife had to cover her face with a veil. She lived her life imprisoned within the four walls of her husband's home, a lifelong servant in his family's midst, her hours taken up by the drudgery of cooking, cleaning, washing clothes for the clan to whom she was in bondage. And the woman suffered. They knew quite well that they were prisoners, that the men held all the keys. Women had no right to engage in religious preaching, nor were they entitled to become sannyasis. renunciates, and remain in celibacy. For them, there was no escape from the life sentence of marriage. The Sindh women were not alone in experiencing oppression. World wars, civil wars, the genocide of minorities, and the mindless and greedy exploitation of the environment were growing like a cancer on the planet. But the root of all this upheaval lay in the bitter sleep of ignorance of humanity. There seemed to be, so the story says, but the root of all this upheaval lay in the bitter sleep of ignorance of humanity. There seemed to be no glimmer of real spiritual knowledge. This was a dark period indeed. So we'll stop here. In the next chapter, we'll look into a common but special personality. Okay, thank you everyone. We'll see you tomorrow, 15 minutes. Om Shanti.